Hello and welcome to a straight out of the box review of Nora Huszka's Gypsy Palace Tarot with myself, Marcus Katz, author of Tarosophy, and with co-author Charlie Goodwin, author of Around the Tarot in 78 Days, Tarot Face to Face, and Learning Lenormand. Our next book for Llewellyn, out in 2014, is a secret, and Charlie is busy researching it right next to me as we speak. That's due for Christmas. It's now July, a very hot, humid, muggy July in England, and Christmas seems an awfully long time away. So one of the first things to say about Nora's deck is when I first saw it, I always like to try and remember the first moment you saw a particular deck. Was it online? Did you see someone reading with it? Was it a particular card? What was it that really caught your attention about it? And for me, I just remember looking at Nora's Kickstarter project and seeing the consistency. I think that for me was the mark of something special. There was a consistency in both Nora's personality, the photographs she had taken of herself and the images and the deck, and the message and the graphics and the artwork. The whole package was entirely consistent. It spoke of something very bright, very cheerful, very colourful, very vibrant, very enthusiastic, and I'm hoping that the deck has got all of those qualities. It reminded me a little bit of, I guess, a deck like Roxy Sims' Pearls of Wisdom deck, another of my favourite decks, with very lush, vibrant colours and a lot of symbols within each card itself. So I was one of the many people who funded Nora's deck, and she went to ASS in Altenburger to have it printed, and it's out now. And we received this wonderful little bag. I like the nice little yellow tassels on the bottom. It's already making me smile. It's fun, the colour's bright. Nora definitely has an eye for colour. And due to the level of our funding, and I know some of our other friends and colleagues have really contributed to the funding, so thank you to them. We received one of the prints that Nora has produced, and it was this one here. Now this is the Gypsy Palace image itself, and it's just one of my favourite images, and it's been sat in the library on the other side of the room from me, and every time I gaze across at it I sort of find myself entering into it. It's the colours, the warmth of it, it's a very inviting place, and I just want to enter into it. Nora also sent a reading, handwritten reading, which is quite extensive, and I'm looking forward to reading that. I haven't read that yet, so I'm going to look forward to that. There's even a quote from 1952, a poem on the back of it, which is nice. And by the way, I hope you like the painting. Its style is not quite like the Gypsy Palace, but the landscape has a soul like this. Nice. So, without further ado, I'm going to take, and again we can see the caravan spread. It's actually a spread that's given. Now we all know that the tarot has nothing at all, or very little, to do with gypsies, other than the marketing efforts in the 1950s in particular to associate tarot, as opposed to cards and gambling and cards for cartomancy, with gypsies. And then obviously we've got the gypsies, it means back to Egypt and so on. So I'm not too concerned that a deck would carry the name Gypsy with it, because there is definitely a number of really good reasons to do that. And That's all fine. So, so this one is numbered. We can see here, this one is numbered. Little smiley face. It's beautiful. A card. And then the deck itself. So these were, so I'll put the bag to one side and open. Now, the first thing to say is there's no shrink wrap, so I don't have to claw my nails in order to get into the darn thing, which is always a bonus for me. Okay, so one standard card box, code on the bottom. And then the cards themselves. So let's see how we do with these. And towards the end of this, as ever, I'm going to try and come up with a totally unique and distinctive method that the cards suggest themselves. I always like to allow my client to suggest the method to me, often unconsciously, that I'm going to use to do a reading, and I also like the cards to have a little hand in that as well. So we'll see if we can come up with something other than the caravan idea that Nora has already included in the booklet, and perhaps we'll go with the Gypsy Palace vibe, but we'll see. So the cards are nice and solid, they're very good quality. You can't quite see that, but well, you certainly can't feel it, is I guess what I mean, but they're nice, they're slightly laminated and very solid. So that's good. So the back's very beautiful, and again picks up on the colour scheme, so that's very wonderful. And I have seen quite a few of the images online, so that's you know, I'm sort of prepared for vibrant, bright colours. Now I start to wonder, I look at the full card and I see this, which is a figure, and it looks very motley, so it certainly has that sort of fool vibe to it. But I don't know if it's a Hungarian folklore tale, maybe even a gypsy tale. It seems to have feathers, and the face is very frightening, perhaps. So it's actually a little bit, I guess, darker in a sense than I was expecting. So if I was to try and find out what that was, do I have any way of doing that? So I don't, as far as I know. So I would have to go to Nora's website, and Nora has a very active Facebook group as well. And I do happen to know, actually, come to think of it, that Steph Muriel Estragon has done an interview with Nora, and I think the Fool is one of the cards that is mentioned, either the Fool or the Magician. So that's quite exciting. You can go back and look online and find the sources for the images themselves. But there's obviously no accompanying book with this as yet. So we're going to have to use our intuition a little bit and allow the cards to suggest their own meanings. So I come to the... see, this is the great thing. The cards make me smile immediately. The Magician is a sort of, I guess, performing artiste. I like the cat disappearing into the background. I particularly like, can you see that shocking blue sky in the background through the window? The use of colour in this deck is already something that I can see is going to be very useful in the readings themselves. That clear blue sky of clarity, even though the Magician is sort of balanced on a chair, it's the blue sky, it's that window of clarity that really speaks to me from this card. So I think we're going to have to use a lot of the colour symbolism in the cards. The High Priestess, again, very beautiful, lush colours. Perfect for this summer's day. And you can see again that contrast, depending on what the camera and your screen picks out. But in my hands I can see this beautiful contrast of the lush purples and blues, and then the blue on her forehead. It looks almost, I guess, lunar. The sort of lunar crescent is on her head, and there's the light behind her, whereas her actual robes and dress is like the landscape, but it's a sort of inner landscape. In a sense, I get the idea that these cards are, it's almost like looking at aura readings or something like that, where you've got layers of colour, each of which has their own particular meaning when it's in a particular location of the body. So if we take a look at a pair then, for example, the Empress and the Emperor, we can see a nicely sort of matched pair, and again you'll see that the colours, that blue and the red, I'm not an art scholar at all by any stretch of the imagination, but I do know when colours have language, and in this deck the colours certainly have a language all of their own, and that's something I was sort of expecting, but it surprised me to see them so vibrant. The Hierophant looks a little bit like a cleric on their day off or something like this. He's got a very hairy arm, and he looks as if he's possibly even been recently defrocked. So there's a sort of hint of maybe a tongue-in-cheek view on established religion within this card. But again, look at that red and look at the green next to each other. That's absolutely beautiful. So we've got all of the cards. I'm just going to quickly take a look through them. The colours, the cards themselves have the titles in 4 languages at the bottom, but the borders aren't too obtrusive. You'll note it's not a deck that immediately calls for debordering. Okay, the Hanged Man is actually hanging straight up, which will be less confusing for card readers who always try and turn that card right way up even though it's upside down. But I couldn't quite read my own standard readings with this card, because I like the idea that his feet are in the heavens and his head is down below, and that feeds into my particular way of reading the card. So I'm going to have to find a slightly new way of reading with that particular card, which again is always exciting if this is the deck that one is using. Okay, so looking through, the Sun is one of the cards that we used for recent multi-language promotion on Facebook, and that's a gorgeous card. Okay, enough of that. Let's have a look at the minors. Now the minors look as detailed as the majors, so there's no sudden drop in detail or style in between them. I like the Nine of Wands here. She's pointing with a great deal of passion towards a particular flower in that garden there. So there's the Nine of Wands. Again, look at that contrast of the orange and the blue, absolutely beautiful. And some of the decks are semi-surreal, some of the images are semi-surreal. So here we have, you wouldn't imagine this from Nora, from those pictures of you. You look so bright and jolly and vibrant on the outside, and there's this slightly surreal, offbeat humour going on inside. There's a hand holding a frog here, and the frog is busy taking the flies off the head of what first of all looks like a plant and then actually turns out to be a person. So very, very strange image there. That's for the Ten of Wands. So, again, just to point out one last, here's the Ace of Swords, and that blue against the yellow, absolutely astonishingly stunning, the use of colours in this particular deck. Okay, and what about the court cards then? Now, they are numbered, first of all, 11 to 14. So if we take a look at the swords, you can see that they are numbered along the top. So there's no immediate distinction of those between the minor cards, which would perhaps take a little bit of noticing to get used to. But then we have the titles down at the bottom as well. So there's no immediate distinction, and that works both ways. There's no immediate distinction between the court cards and the minors. So they're all off a piece, and that perhaps is a slightly more artistic perspective on producing a deck, as opposed to a strict design perspective where perhaps you might want to make them different. But again, different decks have different ways of approaching them. Okay, so how does it work in practice? Let's see if we can come up with something that works in practice. This is always the difficult bit in these straight out of the box things. Obviously, been talking about colour, and that's the most significant thing with this. So I think, and we mentioned the aura, didn't we? Just a by the by, where did I put it? It's down here. I did cheat slightly. I didn't get the cards out of the box in advance, but I did get this book out in advance. It's called The Painted Caravan by Basil Raskowski, and it's a very old book. This one's quite rare, and as you can see, the covers have come straight off. But I like this deck because because of the actual very colourful images inside it, and you can see there's a similar perhaps sort of style in the images, although these are nowhere near as vibrant as Nora's, that's for sure. And this sort of equates tarot history to Gypsy lore. I'm not entirely convinced, of course, but it's an interesting book and it does tie in with this deck. However, the spreads or ideas at the back of this book, strangely enough, are, you'll recognise a good old Kabbalistic tree of life in the book itself, so I'm not quite sure how that matches any Gypsy lore. So, colours, aura, sunshine. Let's have a think about this. How about doing a reading? One can do it for the levels of the aura, the layers of the aura, perhaps. Astral, etheric, spiritual. One could do it for chakra readings. This would be very good for, because of the colour symbolism. Healing, I get a real sense of wholeness and use of colours as a means of showing a whole rainbow of health, like a spectrum. So, spectrum, there's a good word. Spectrum of reading, rainbow of reading. We've got the Golden Dawn Kesheth stuff, but let's not go there. So, the rainbow reading, okay, so we're going to do a rainbow reading. The Gypsy Palace Rainbow, okay, the Gypsy Palace Rainbow. Now imagine we have this wonderful Gypsy Palace. In fact, we have a similar picture to a Gypsy Palace in Nora's image. One more time for this, because it's so beautiful. So, a rainbow then. A rainbow over the palace. It's already very Kabbalistic, I do apologise. But you can have palaces in any story. There's a sort of element of folklore in here. So, let's have the ancient folklore tale of the princess stuck in the palace, and she finally escapes the palace through a bridge, and the bridge is the rainbow. But in order to get the rainbow there, she has to actually put gold out in the courtyard. But she can't do that because she has no gold. Therefore, she grows her hair into a pool of gold, and the golden hair eventually attracts the rainbow, and she walks out. So that's a allegory, I guess, of using what you have in order to get out of a situation. So the rainbow reading, the Gypsy Palace rainbow, tells us what four walls keep us in a situation and what we can use that we really actually have but have to turn into something else in order to escape the situation. And this is the rainbow bridge out of the Gypsy Palace. So I'm going to shuffle the cards. I will have to do this a little while because this is the issue with having a new deck. So I'll tell you while I do this that Nora has a Facebook group. If you look for Nora's Gypsy Palace on Facebook, you will find the Facebook group. And she has a website. The Kickstarter project page is obviously now redundant because she got the funding. So I'm going to think of a real situation that I need a resolution to, and out of the box that I feel a bit constrained in. Should we have something for the four walls, the four positions, or should we just let the cards speak themselves? I think what we'll do is have the four cards as being inside, like you're stuck inside a room in the Gypsy Palace, and you need to find the window, the way out. So one of the cards will have to suggest the actual exit route, and then we lay a fifth card on top of the four in order to find out what the rainbow is. You could do that as 7 cards, for example, equating them to the 7 colours, the 7 planets, and any symbolic meaning that you might want to assign to those. So let's give it a good shuffle, and what I'm actually going to do is, because this is a physical reading and it's talking about the Gypsy Palace, so these cards, this is the Gypsy Palace. This deck is actually Nora's Gypsy Palace, and so therefore we need to find out where we are inside the palace. In order to do that, we need a significator, and the one that we always use, traditionally for the Rainbow Gypsy Palace method, is the magician, because as we saw, the magician has the window. So what we need to do is find the magician and where he is stuck. When we did Tarot Flip, one of the things that came out of it was that readers, although most of the books talk about the magician as being the 4 elements and trickery and so on, in actual real readings, the function of the magician is success. Readers gave us a lot of hints when we talked about what the magician never does. A lot of people said the magician never fails, the magician never is confused, the magician never blah blah blah. And when we flipped that to get the actual unconscious meaning of the magician for all of these hundreds of readers, one of the things that came out was the magician is all about success. It's implied within the card in all of its keyword meanings, and yet when people then use it in a reading, they talk about the magician as indicating success to what goes on around. So in the Gypsy Palace we go and find the magician. So the first thing we need to do is go and find the magician in the walls of the palace, and he will have 2 walls either side of him, 2 walls above him and 2 walls below him. So we're going to take the 2 cards either side of him to make 4 cards for the walls of the palace. So we turn it upside down and I flip through to find the magician. Where's he in the Gypsy Palace? So we can even name the room that he's in based on the card names. See, and this is the thing, when you first start off with a new deck, you have to look at the names sometimes, or the numbers, in order to get any sense, because you're not looking at the images themselves. So I've gone through and I've found the magician. The magician is located, you'll see the window out just here, and I'm going to take the 2 cards below him and the 2 cards above him, so the 2 cards here and the 2 cards here, to make the walls of the Gypsy Palace. Because I'm stuck like the magician in the room, there's the window, so I need to know what's keeping me stuck in. So I'm going to take the 4 cards out, lay the other cards there, and then I have the magician stuck inside the 4 walls of the Gypsy Palace. So on one wall we have the Ace of Wands, on the other the Emperor, on the other the 7 of Swords, and the 5 of Pentacles. Now I'm going to drop any of my associated meanings with these cards. There's 30 years just gone. And just look at the cards themselves and see what that signifies. So the first thing that strikes me is that if these were painted on my wall or somehow holding me in, I've got the Ace of Wands and the Emperor. So let's take a look at those. So we have the Ace of Wands and the Emperor here. Now, the Ace of Wands is a naked female, almost a fetal-like thing. So it's the Ace of Wands. I get very much the sense of it's something. There's a wonderful word, nascent. It means almost pre-born or almost about to be born, nascent. And this has that potential for growth. The Emperor is all. He reminds me actually of Odin. I've been reading a lot of rune work recently, and he's very Odin-like with his one eye covered, and he has like a halo above him, but the bandages make it look more like an Aruba serpent, that sort of figure of 8. So he's a sort of timeless figure, and to me he symbolises someone who's gone through the walls, he knows what he wants, he has that power, but in combination with the Ace of Wands, and these are the walls of the situation, it's almost like there's a resistance to growing that power, there's a resistance to developing that much further, perhaps because it's too energetic, too demanding, or so on. So I'll go and think about that and think about what that means for why I'm stuck in the situation that I'm stuck in, with not expressing that particular power. Then we take a look at these 2 cards, and on the other walls we have the 7 of Swords and the 5 of Pentacles. And if you're still with me on the video, then you might want to give me a hand and have a think about what those cards might actually mean as you look at them. To me they signify fear again. There's a strange figure either helping or like a trickster figure, perhaps like a familiar is the word I'm after for Our Lady on the 7 of Swords. She is actually accompanied by this figure. So and here someone is presenting something but also holding somebody else back. So there's a interesting dichotomy between the figures on the 2 cards. Is the other figure helping or hindering the sort of main figure in the cards? And these are all aspects of oneself, so in my particular case I can read this as to exactly what the situation is in terms of personal history, as to why I would want to keep things within a particular container. So that's really interesting. Now, having said that, I want to find out, where's our good old magician, how to escape out of the locked room in the Gypsy Palace. because I want to clamber along the rainbow and get out on our stairway of gold. So there's the window for the magician. So what I'm going to do is actually take those cards out. Okay, so I'm going to slightly change the reading in real time. I'm going to take the 4 wall cards out, so those are the things holding me back within the palace itself, and I'm going to pop the magician back into the palace, because now the walls have gone. So I can now shuffle him through and consider what it would be like if those 4 walls that were holding me in this situation, having got some more understanding of them, what it might be like to clamber out and escape the walls. It says a load of other places in the palace I want to explore. I don't want to be stuck in that room. So let's just shuffle a little bit more. And then what we're going to do is go and find the magician and see the 2 cards. You could do it with more, but for this purpose we're just going to do it with the 2 cards. 1 card either side of him to show the pathway, the rainbow bridge, out of the room, out of the 4 walls once those 4 walls have gone. So I then look back, I'm going to find our magician, so I need to find number 1. This would be a good deck to read slowly. I get the sense that already that the deck, because of the colours, the depth of symbolism, is one that requires a little bit of time just to relax with the colours and the imagery. And there we go. So I've now found our magician, and where is he when there are no walls? So the 2 cards either side of the magician, what are the 2 steps that we must take to leave that room? And I'll show you first, so you can get an idea of the 2 images. Excuse me. And we have the 9 of Wands and the 9 of Pentacles, so the 2 9s. And okay, so we're back to that very almost pained lady pointing at the flower. It's like, and there's the Katz in the background, and I'm now seeing there's a little golden crown floating above her. There's a very definite message there. There's a call from someone pointing at something very clearly and saying, look, there's the answer. It's dead straightforward, and it's right in front of you. So there's something that is really obvious, and then we have, now that's interesting, the 9 of Pentacles for the way out, with the sort of pointing of the card showing that figure. And the 9 of Pentacles is showing the bird that is sort of traditional with the Waite Smith type of image. But the other arm of the figure is being transformed into what appears to be a phoenix, and it's basically the answer to my question. I'm not going to particularly talk that through, but it's definitely the answer to the question. Is it something new? It's something I had considered, but it's very definite when the other woman is pointing to it so clearly. It's a sort of situation about reinvestment, but not reinvestment of money in this particular case, reinvestment of something else. And that's really showing that it will transform Phoenix-like and get me out of the room, and it's really obvious, and I ought to just get on and do it. So that's the Gypsy Palace rainbow spread, although there wasn't much of a rainbow in it, so let's call it something else. It's the Magician's Escape, okay, the Magician's Escape method for the Gypsy Palace Tarot. And I'm sure you can have lots of fun using these as a Gypsy Palace and exploring the different avenues and gateways within it. It's a striking deck. It's a very art centric deck, if that's a proper word. It has surreal and bemusing images throughout it. It's a mixture of I love the Three of Cups. It's not as jolly a deck in the sense of lightness as I was expecting. It's got some quite heavy tones in it, and that's right. I mean, that's should be fitting of a deck that has all of the possibilities. It's I think it's going to take a little bit of time to get used to, and I'm looking forward to getting used to it. So I'm very delighted to recommend the Gypsy Palace Tarot, and hope you have fun using it. Perhaps you'll use the Magician's Escape method within it. And thank you, Nora, for providing this deck. And one last time, thank you for the wonderful colours. And architecture and landscape of the Gypsy Palace Tarot. So thanks a lot. I look forward to opening the next deck and starting to use some of the previous decks, and perhaps having some follow-up videos of how I've got along with real readings with the actual decks themselves. So stay tuned for more out-of-the-box reviews, and thanks a lot for your time. Bye for now.